So up next, am I the asshole for not wanting to give my late husband's sperm to his parents? I'm sorry, I really tried to think of a less silly title. When my husband was diagnosed with cancer, we froze his sperm so we could have children via insemination even after chemotherapy. His parents were very involved in his treatment and were aware that we were doing this. His treatment was unfortunately unsuccessful and he passed away on July 19th. His parents asked me if I was considering being inseminated with his sperm, and I said no. Then they asked me if I could transfer ownership of the sperm to them so they could use it to have grandchildren. I assume they're planning on hiring a surrogate for this, but I'll admit I was so surprised and confused I didn't actually ask. My gut reaction was that this is wrong and exploitative and not what my husband would have wanted. We froze his sperm because we wanted to raise a family together, and freezing his sperm seemed like a better option than adopting or using a sperm donor, not because he wanted to give his parents grandkids or just put his DNA out into the world for the sake of it. I'm so confused about who they expect to raise this child or children, as they're both in their 60s. The surrogate, ? One of their nieces or nephews? My husband has no siblings, and I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. It feels like they just want their bloodline to continue without any thought to the practicality of it.
It's probably what it is.
I'm actually kind of torn on this one.
I look at this and I really, to put this into perspective, he died July 19th. This post was 6 days ago, so it was technically written on either July 31st or August 1st.
Wow.
Oh.
There's only been about 2 weeks since this man's death.
But I think that's part of it. I think his parents are mourning.
So here's the thing. So if you look at the stages of grief, anger, bargaining, guilt, all the stages of grief, I think they're at the bargaining stage. I think they're at like, okay, he's gone, but what can I do to have a piece of him?
Yeah.
What can I do to bring him back? I think that's where they're at.
I do too.
But the thing is that like if the child has a great home to be raised in, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, the other thing she's going to do is just throw the sperm away. So it's like, but the wrong part is that he never agreed to it. So it's like, if that would have been a conversation before he passed, there would be no question. But because it's like without his consent, it feels really weird.
It feels wrong.
Well, and the wife is going to have the sense of, she's going to have more of the sense of what he would have wanted than the parents will.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Honestly, if she's uncomfortable with it, that's her choice. But I think she would, at the end of the day, it almost feels like she should be the one making this choice.
But then you also have to take into consideration that she's also mourning. So maybe the idea too of him having a child out there that's not with her is like horrible,
Well, and I don't see this being a like logical thing. I think they were together, they were married in the reality that was their reality before he passed. They were together. They either planned on having kids together or not at all. I do think and this is a really, really hot take that people have like I've seen on the internet and has like kind of been implanted in me now. It's like you shouldn't have a kid because you're lonely. You shouldn't have a kid because you want a mini me.
Yeah.
Like there's hot takes that people put out there where it's like, these are reasons why you shouldn't have a kid. And it's like, for these grandparents, it's like, you shouldn't have a kid to try to bring your dead son back.
Yeah.
Because what is that kid's life going to be? That kid's life is not going to know his parents.
Yeah.
And who's going to be the mom?
Right.
Are they going to get a donor egg that they don't know where it came from? And then implant that into a surrogate or, like she said, maybe a niece? Like, what is this child's life going to look like?
Yeah, it definitely, like, if I had to pick, it doesn't feel right. It really just doesn't feel right. But I mean, it's not so awful. Like if they were to continue his DNA and, they brought an amazing human into this world, like, I mean, once the human gets here, like everyone's going to be so happy and in love, like whoever the like people are that are taking care of this child. But at the same time, like if this was never even an idea that floated through his head, then it just doesn't feel fair to him.
I'm kind of sad they mentioned the frozen sperm to his parents. Because if that would have just been a conversation between them, this dilemma wouldn't have even happened.
Yeah.
And I think
honestly should have been.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they should have even like involved the parents and been like, yeah, we're freezing his sperm.
Well, that's not even part of the treatment. That's a decision. That's like a smart decision you make as a couple because you're going to go through this recovery process.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend in high school that he got testicular cancer literally like a year out of high school. And so I remember hearing about the fact that like they froze some sperm just in case and blah, blah, blah. And like, that's a decision you make as a couple. But like, I don't know. I've also seen a lot of posts on Reddit that are like, my husband is terminally ill and everyone's asking me if I'm going to get pregnant. And it's like, why?
You're already dealing with the loss of somebody.
And
then to come in and raise what would have been your child together would make it even that much harder.
I think for a lot of people that's heartbreaking. But then I think there are some people that are like, I'm so thankful that I do have a piece of my husband or my partner left. And this one is probably one of the tougher ones, like ethically, morally, that we've like really.
I think what I would do if I was her is that I would just respond to the parents and being like, I'm mourning. I'm sure that you guys are mourning. And this is not a good time to have a conversation about that. We can definitely talk about this, but not right now. I think we need to.
This has been 2 weeks since he passed.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like we need to heal more. Like we're in a really vulnerable moment, all of us, and we need to heal more before we have this conversation. And then at that point, like, you know, if the parents are like have some really like compelling reason, if they're like, he always said that he wanted to pass, like, you know, whatever, like what, and like if they're really so convincing that they're like, look at his diary as a kid and this is what, I don't know, whatever,
I feel like the wife would
whatever
know.
Yeah, I think the wife would probably knows, and I think the right answer is probably just no. But if there's some, you know, after they're not in the thick of mourning, if there's some really genuine reason where it makes sense, then they can decide. But right now, I would be like, we all need space. We all need to think about this.
Yeah. And I think that's rational. Like, you should not make any major life decisions after a great loss like this.
But even still, let the dust settle. But I think if he didn't explicitly say anything about having a kid, regardless if he's here or not, it goes away.
I agree.
So I got a lot of comments. OP... like, I'm going to show you guys. This is a throwaway account. This is me scrolling to the bottom. And this is me scrolling all the way up to the top. OP comments extensively.
A little behind the scenes here.
Yeah, right?
Extensively.
We just saw behind the curtain.
I know, Wizard of Oz style. So I'm going to try to, like, do them the best I can. I really want to do this one justice because I think this is, like, probably one of the hardest posts we've ever read. And I want to just... I'm like want to cry at this. Like this is probably for me. I just like can't imagine losing your partner like this and having to deal with like his parents coming out of the woodwork 2 weeks later and being like, "Hey, that's sperm."
Yeah.
I just lost my son, but hey, that's sperm.
Well, and it's even sad enough to need to make the choice to freeze sperm in that situation because you know there's a risk.
Yeah.
And then to have it actually happen, it's just I don't know.
Yeah. There's one comment I want to start with. The comment I want to read is in reply to something else. So I kind of feel like I have to read the comment from an outside source first. So this person goes, damn, I don't even know what to judge this one. I can see most sides. Since as of the moment, I haven't come to a definite decision that I can't expect to say if one of you is the asshole over the other, not the asshole. To start, I understand completely why you feel the way you do, and I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I have a couple questions, though. Did you and your husband actually decide what he wanted to do in this case, or are you speculating? But obviously you have the authority now. Are you keeping it from his parents because you feel they're yours and only yours so no one else can have them, and you decided you won't use them? Deciding what someone else should be doing with their lives is not your right. So using that to justify not giving them it is sort of assholery in that case. They love their son, I'm presuming, and raising a child that shares their son's DNA while teaching the kid about his father and history doesn't seem so bad. The grandparents are assholes for not being as sensitive to you as they should be by asking so soon. However, at the same time, if they're in their 60s, then they don't have much time to lose. Anyway, and they might be thinking that by you deciding against using them, you're going to move on from him somehow. Grief is weird. I think the priority is, what would your husband want? Mm-hmm. But if you or them honestly don't know if he wanted to pass on his lineage or whatever reason, then it's a me versus the in-laws question over what each party wants. And yes, legally, you have the authority, of course, but being an asshole isn't only judged on legalities. The context is key. Again, sorry for your loss and all the added grief. So, long-winded, great points.
That was a pretty good post.
It was very probing, which I appreciate because I think these are all questions that we just said. Like, what would the husband really want? So OP goes on to say, my aversion to their plan is due to what I know about why he wanted to freeze his sperm. He wanted to be a father. Specifically, he wanted to raise kids with me. I know it wasn't about just passing on his genes because both adoption and sperm donors were also options we discussed, and he was fine with those possibilities. I just can't imagine he'd be comfortable with having a child with his DNA out there who neither he nor I had any hand in raising.
Yep.
Yeah. And on top of that too, like who he's mixing his DNA with. Like not being able to decide that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, like he didn't get to pick like, okay, if I die, like I would want my DNA to be passed down to this human or that human.
It's just like bringing a child into this world is a serious decision. I think, unplanned pregnancies happen and everyone makes the best of that situation. And obviously people are typically, I should say, are very happy to have a child, but he's gone. Like this autonomy and this decision is gone.
Yeah.
So to just assume or to let his parents just take over the sperm and like not really know what's going to happen to it, I don't think it definitely doesn't seem like it's what he would have wanted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to put myself in the situation of him. Like if I were to die and had like my eggs saved and whatever, would I be that mad if my parents decided to like pass down my DNA? I don't know. So it's so hard to say because he's not here and like the decision is in him, you know?
Right. And it's obviously not going to affect him in any way at this point.
That's true. But you want to honor the person that everyone loves that had passed away. So
that's right. And my gut feeling, I still feel even a little bit weird about it if they didn't have the explicit conversation.
Yeah.
But I feel like it should be her or nobody.
Exactly. I agree with that. I think where I'm getting really caught up with this one is I'm not so much concerned about the people that are trying to make this decision. Like the grandparents, aka like his parents and the wife. Okay, like, yeah, they're affected clearly. Like they're directly involved right now. But I look at this child and I don't know if this is from me having known people that are adopted and constantly feel this like burning, aching desire, like, what about my birth mom? Like, I love my parents that raised me, but what about my birth mom? Why did she give me up?
Right.
There's something to be said about, children that go through this experience of not knowing their birth parents, who they feel a part of them is missing. And there's a lot of trauma with that. I just look at this, I'm like, it's just such an unfair situation to bring a kid into for selfish reasons of my son is gone. I want a piece of my son. To me, this seems so selfish.
Right, and or continuing the lineage.
Any reason that the grandparents have is, to me, is selfish because it's like, no matter what you do, your son is gone.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry about that. And it's so tragic. But to bring a child into the world to appease you, what
That is really an interesting concept to think about.
That's
the
where I'm coming
grandparents.
from.
Like, are they like who is raising them? Are they raising them? And if they are
They're
raising them,
60.
yeah,
I have 60-year-old patients that die every day. What are you going to, where's this 1-year-old going to go? Is family automatically going to take them on? Take them on? Like, what?
It'd have to be the mom or the wife. I mean,
But however, I will say, I mean, even when people are adopted, like, and they're wondering about their birth parents, I think a part of that is because they know their birth parent is out there, you know, or they don't know anything about them or something like that. Like, I think it would be different if you're like, I know that my dad died and this was my situation, you know, because he would be able to learn about him. The grandparents are going to tell him all about him, you know?
Yeah.
But
But I guess, like, even still growing up and hearing about your dad and not having your dad, it's traumatic
Of
either
course.
way.
It's not an ideal situation. And I mean, the only thing I will say, though, is that with a lot of situations, it's not ideal. Like, there's things from my childhood that I'm like, damn, like, I could have been like a cooler person if this didn't happen or whatever it is. And it's just like life is crazy. So I think more of this story is just really focusing on like,
The wife.
yeah. And like what she wants to decide. And like if she thinks that that's kind of fucked up and crossing the line, she's not the asshole. Like it's
Not the asshole at all for this. And so, with that being said, someone comments, I hope you decide to have his child. I'd be the same. It's not theirs to use. And she goes, me carrying his child isn't really on the table.
yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And I feel like for her, he's gone. There's no bringing him back.
then the sperm should be gone. Done deal.
I agree. I think he's gone as there's
He wanted to raise a kid with her.
yeah.
It would be such a hard place to be put in though. Like I'm just picturing if I had people that loved the person that I loved like so strongly too, and they were just so desperate and I was the one who had to make the call to like break their heart, like you know what I mean? Like I'm sure she's just feeling so crazy right now, or like just so torn and like.
This
Well, and
was-
it's so
she-
fresh.
Yeah.
2 weeks, you guys. Like again,
Yeah.
like 2 weeks. She just lost her life partner, someone who they were actively planning to have a life and kids together.
I can't even imagine like typing this all out and thinking coherently. Like,
Yeah. I feel like clarity will come with time.
yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, and again, it's been about 2 weeks. Like, sit on it. Don't make any rash decisions. Like I saw somewhere where you shouldn't make any major life changes for at least 6 to 9 months after a death.
Just don't give it to the parents.
Yeah.
No, it's not theirs.
and-
It's
and-
not what I really don't think that's what the husband would have wanted.
And that's what I would just say. I would literally be like, I don't like the fact that like this decision is put in my hands because I don't like that I'm holding back something that you guys really want. However, I know it's not what he wants.
Yeah.
And if I thought even the slightest bit that it was what he would want, then this would be a different story. But I am so confident that it's not. So like I don't want to feel like the villain here, but I am the one who is able to legally call the shots, and this is just what I think is right.
Exactly. Legality is also a very important point in this because depending on the paperwork that they filed when they did do the sperm donation / saving it, depending on what state, apparently it's a big thing. So one of the top comments is, not the asshole, though the decision may not actually be yours to make anyways. If you contact the sperm bank where it's frozen, they may likely have procedures on what happens in the situations of the donor's death. There may be terms that he agreed to in the paperwork that may state ownership transfers to yourself, or it may state that the sample is destroyed. Contact them and see what they say. Though, if ownership is now yours, I don't blame you at all for saying no. OP replies, ownership is mine. And someone comments back, you are so selfish. And she goes, for the legal ownership passing to me after his death? ? And the person literally responds back, everything is me, me, me.
Okay.
This woman just lost her fucking
Wow.
husband.
Wow.
This is where I get mad of people being able to be anonymous on the internet. Because what a goddamn troll.
Literally.
Yeah.
I think I was saying this to you, Morgan, right?
We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah, I think that it should be outlawed that people are able to just create all these different usernames and just be trolls on the internet. Like, if you want to say what you want to say, then have a face and a name to it. You know, like, I think that's totally fine to express yourself and the freedom of speech and everything. But it's gotten so toxic and dangerous, the fact that people can just hide behind these, like, I love cutie pie 563 and say evil things to people. Like, that is so wrong. So I don't know.
It says a lot about the people that do that.
Yeah.
It says a lot that you feel like there's a reason you're hiding behind some fake little name. There's a reason.
Yeah, you're
There's
a coward.
clearly a reason.
Yeah.
You're a coward, and
And they have nothing better to do.
you're being cruel for the sake of being cruel.
Yeah.
Because what is this going to get you? Who is this going to benefit? You are being cruel for whatever malicious reason that is.
Oh, they're just taking out whatever, like, frustrations or whatever the fuck they have to.
Everyone's fighting their own battles, and it could be an outlet.
Wait, sorry, Morgan. Could I interject for a second?
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking that when you talked about the adoption thing, and you're like, even like people like, you know, like are always wondering and stuff like that.
I'm going to actually, what I was going to add to that is I was going to say, hey, I'm actually going to phone a friend for a part of this, and I'm going to reach out to my roommate, Erin and have her interject on this story.
But like what I wanted to say is that because we're talking about like, should there be a child be brought into this world or not?
Yeah.
Then I think people who are adopted are going to be like, what? So I don't know who my parents are, and so I shouldn't have been brought into this world. I just think they're going to make that parallel.
Really?
Do you know what I'm saying? What do you
No.
think, Justin?
I didn't get that much of a vibe because at the same time, when you're talking about like babies that weren't planned, it's like that's what you say about yourself all the time.
Oh, I am literally I am an oops baby, 100%.
No.
I'm too, actually. Actually, my mom is, which makes me like technically one.
I think it was
Second
super valid because my ex was, I think, technically adopted, but she knew her biological dad, but didn't know her biological mom at all or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everything she said was very on point.
It was on point.
with what she experienced and kind of that. So there was nothing that stuck out to me where I'm like, ooh, okay.
That's fine. I was just saying, because we're talking about the concept of bringing a life into the world or not. I could see that I could just see people making this parallel of being like, wait, so you don't think I should have been brought in the world just because I'm fucked up over the fact I don't know who my parents are, my biological?
No.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
And I think it would be a point to like, we can add this in because I think this is very important to have. I'm going off of like, I had a college roommate that was adopted, and I've had other friends that were adoptive, and they're very, very happy they're there.
Right.
They're very thankful for their adoptive parents. They love their adoptive parents. They have a great relationship with them. But I've also heard the opposite, where people's adoptive parents haven't been great. But from my experience, no matter how great the relationship is with the adoptive parents, my friends that have been adoptive have always like had this yearning to find their birth mom or find their birth parents. And I just think it's like this kind of like, it's just this innate nature to like either whether it's like know where you come from, know who you are a part of. I don't know. I don't know personally, but I just think it's a conversation to be had. And I think I will include, because in my head when we were recording that segment, I was like, I'm going to send her the story and be like, hey, I know you're adoptive. I know you have a great relationship with your birth parents. I'll let Erin tell it if I'm like, I start crying. Ugh, it's so tough. Like this shit just fucking hits me. But I'll let Erin tell it if she's willing. But Erin like kind of went through that experience. So we're going to phone a friend. I know, fuck.
Well, I'd for sure have that. I would for sure have that yearning.
Yeah, I would
Put yourself
too.
in that situation.
yeah.
You'd be like,
I know, and like I said, I in no way, like Morgan, I know your heart and I know everything you're saying. I totally was like on board with what you're saying. I just know that we we
No,
get
and
so
this
sick of
is,
people like making assumptions, and so I was just trying to be
it's
like,
good. It's good to clarify. So
yeah,
if you tune into the YouTube version, I'll phone a friend. I have no doubt she'll respond. So that'll be on the YouTube version. And here's where I'm going to cut so I can get my shit together. So I think we covered everything with that one. Thank you for bringing that up. I obviously don't want people that are adopted to feel like they're any less or shouldn't be here, because I think that's definitely important to
That's
make
not
note
what you
of.
were saying.
It's not what I was saying, but I think it's very easy to, when you feel personal about something, to kind of infer. I think it's really easy to like misinterpret things, and so I don't want there to be any misinterpretation. Like, a child that's adopted is just as valuable, and their life is just as important, and are like, I just don't want anything negative inferred from that. I'm just saying, like, in this situation, I think it is unfair. It's just sperm. It's not even a child. It's not like it's inseminated eggs. It is
Right.
purely sperm.
yeah,
Which, like, how many seeds have been flushed, swallowed, or thrown away?
yeah,
This is just sperm. This is not a
or
baby.
wiped
Wiped.
up.
Wiped.
Towel time. Towel time. So I'm glad you brought that up, because now we can include it and just feel like all of our boxes were checked in. Let me just shut the fuck up. Someone else want to read?
Fuck.
I don't know if I'd be a good reader.
Well,
I kind of like it.
I honestly thought that reading would be way more smooth, but then I remembered that I have
hard.
like reading anxiety.
same.
Like, where it's like whenever people would popcorn me
Popcorn in class?
I'd be like, no.
Oh, I love
Shoot.
popcorn.
Shoot
No.
me. Shoot
I
me.
love popcorn.
I like it's like I know how to read, but it's just like the fluctuation of my voice, and like when commas come and I don't see them, and they all of a sudden they're there, and I'm just like, I pause, and then
That stuff just doesn't bother me.
yeah, it's
Well, with that being said, here you go.
Really?
Yeah, we're going to pass it down the line.
what? You're gonna popcorn me? That's fucked up. I just told you about my trauma from grade school.